Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Streamer Thought Podcast, where thoughts flow and ideas stick. I'm your host, Jasmine, and this episode is a little late, but life was lifing or life was happening, and I just got busy and I didn't really have the time to do it. Um, but that also made me think about something else. So I saw this YouTube video. It was either a YouTube video or a podcast. And the question was, what is free time? And they were like, you know, if I'm making plans with someone, it's not because I had free time. It's because I made time. And that made me think about, oh, well, you make time for what you want, which is true. However, there are only 24 hours in a day, okay? And 7 days in a week. So creating time is not possible. Now, I don't know, like rearranging your schedule to try to fit everything in that you want to do, sure. But sometimes things just can't fit into that one day. And sometimes it's just not possible because, like I said, it's 24 hours in a day. So I try to give myself some grace with things like that because I used to get super disappointed or upset when there was something on my list, on my to-do list or on my schedule that I did not do and I was supposed to do in that day. Now though, I'm like, okay, listen, these things on your to-do list are goals, right? These are things that you hope to achieve in the next day, next week, whatever. But if you check off some of them things, then you should be proud. That's what I'm saying to myself. And then the other things, they will just have to go into the next day or into the next week. And that's okay. So yeah, that was definitely a learning experience for me and something that I'm dealing with or working on, I think, on a daily. Be like, it's okay. Give yourself some grace because you're going to get the stuff done. Just might not be able to get it done all in that one time frame that you set for yourself. So, with that being said, this week's episode is not about that. I just wanted to say that first. But really the overarching topic for this week's episode is that you don't know what you don't know. And I've heard that so many times, like so many people have said it in different scenarios for different situations, like you don't know what you don't know. But I really thought about a few different things that related to that this week. So the first thing is, and this one is it can be kind of funny. But so I am in school to get a PhD and at the very end of it and this is probably one of the hardest parts. I guess it depends because the like actual schoolwork and like research and all the papers and all that was hard. That was tough. And that took a lot of like long hours, late nights or early mornings, all that stuff, right? But now being at the end, and it's difficult for different reasons. It's difficult because like I have to do a research study and get participants. And the topic that I'm doing is pretty sensitive and people aren't just ready and willing to just do a survey on it. So that part is difficult, but then the other difficult part is very much like mental. Like this is the end, so like what if something goes wrong, or like, oh, I'm almost done, so like it can't be. It's almost like a too good to be true feeling. Um it's that what you don't know what you don't know type of thing. It's like, I'm in this space hoping that it turns out one way, but I don't really know what the end result is going to be. I'm hoping that the end result is going to be that I get enough survey responses that I'm able to analyze the data, that I'm able to um, defend, and that I'm able to get my doctorate, and that I'm able to do it in the time frame that I have for myself. So, but I don't know. Anyways, yeah, so I'm getting a PhD, which is a doctorate, but it's a doctorate of psychology. So it's studying human behavior or the human mind and understanding, like why people do things or people's thoughts or, things like that. But I am not. So I will be a PhD, not a MD. However, I've had multiple people in my life who maybe, I don't know, maybe they haven't distinguished between the two types of doctors, or maybe they just want to ask me anyway, but they ask me medical questions, like literally medical questions, like, I have this going on, what do you think? What could it be? And as helpful as I want to be, you want to be a good friend, good family member, whatever the case. Um, so I definitely try to help them as much as I can, but it it makes me laugh a little bit because it's like, guys, I'm not that kind of doctor. Like, I'm not a medical doctor. I cannot diagnose you with anything. And even if I was a medical doctor, I would not diagnose you with anything over the phone. You're going to need to come in to whatever clinic or hospital I work at. But what I do, and I thought that this was interesting and also right in line with the PhD. So when they ask me these medical questions, I do research, which is what I do on a daily basis. So maybe they do know that I'm not an MD and they know that I'm a PhD and they're clear on the difference between the two, and they still reach out to me to do the research. And if that's the case, that makes complete sense because that's what I do. I do research. I look up, what could this be? What are the symptoms of this and what are the possibilities, things like that. And then I tell them everything that I found. And I always recommend, like, hey, if you feel any type of way, or worse or whatever the case, go to the doctor because I feel like if they might need to do tests or whatever they need to do. But yeah, I found that to be interesting and it makes me laugh every time, but that's happened to me a few times. It's like, Jasmine, what do you think about this? What would you say this is? And I'm like, I have no clue what it is. I literally wouldn't even know where to start except for to do some research. So, but I feel like it's I welcome it. I encourage people to reach out to me. If you feel like you can trust me with the things like that, that's nice. I appreciate that. So I encourage people to ask me questions that an MD would know the answer to, and I will try my best to help you out. But yeah, the next topic is literally just going into how important research is to me. Because like I said, you don't know what you don't know. So and I'm always trying to learn. So I'm always trying to dig deeper into things. But I think it's just important to know, and something I had to learn is that things are not always what they seem. The saying where that people say everything that glitters is not gold, and it's easy to think that what you see is exactly what it is. Like, and I may have talked about this before, but I think a good example is social media, and how, I mean, people are going to show, well, sometimes they don't. Sometimes people share a lot, the good and the bad and the ugly, and they're very, very open. But then you have, some people who only show the good, and you think that their life is literally all roses all the time. And while maybe it is, I don't know. I don't know for sure about that, but we all have days, most people that I know, including myself, where maybe that wasn't a good day. And I'm not necessarily trying to show you that I had a bad day. So, but you can't be like, "Oh, she never has bad days," just because all you see is the good. So, while that's not an example of doing research, I wouldn't want to dig in and do research on someone, but I think that that's a good example on how, everything may not be exactly what you think it is. Um, there was a topic that I discussed in a previous episode that I don't know, it was when I first talked about it, I kind of was like, I don't know what that means. And so the first thing I did was go get other opinions on it. I wanted to know like what other people thought. And that helped me to critically think about it. And I changed my opinion on it. So I feel like that is the importance of research. That is the importance of digging deeper into things and just knowing that, sometimes what you see is just surface. It's just surface level. I think for me, or at least in my opinion, and in my situation, um, I don't like to always see things in just black and white. Like, I like to understand that there can almost always be a gray area. And so sometimes in certain situations, I think it's important for me to be able to dig a little deeper to understand that, hey, yeah, there's this side and this side, but there's also something in the middle that could also be explored and understood instead of just assuming or thinking like there's no other way but the one way that you have in your mind that you already feel like if you're like setting your ways type of thing, which I think I'm definitely guilty of sometimes. Like some things I'm not easily swayed on, but I appreciate the situations or the times or even the people that can be like, hey, I understand that this is what you think and this is what someone else thinks, but this is there's a middle ground here that neither one of y'all are considering. So yeah, I appreciate that. And I think that's important. Um, Another thing I was thinking about this week, and it stemmed from a conversation I was having with someone, where I asked them, how does God talk to you? And they said that God talks to them in a lot of ways, but the one way that comes to their mind is numbers. So they see significant numbers and they know that that's God, or they know they're on the right path, or whatever the case. That's a message from God. And I thought that was really special that they had that experience, um, or those experiences. And then I started thinking about, well, how does God talk to me? And how do I know for sure that that's God talking to me and not something else talking to me? So then I started to really think about that. So I also came to the same conclusion that God talks to me in a lot of different ways. Sometimes it's very direct, and also I feel like God talks to me in my dreams because, and I think it could be, I don't know, maybe it could be for different reasons, but I think one of the reasons could be that maybe the message that I'm supposed to receive, I wasn't getting it when I was awake. So I had to be dreaming in order to receive it in a different way, if that makes sense. Like, because I feel like different in my dreams, like different things symbolize different situations or different people or whatever the case. So um in order to receive the message, I had to receive it that way in order to really get it and to really understand it. Because when I wake up, I'm like, oh, wow, like light bulb moment. Like that makes sense now. And that was the only way I could have received it. That was the only way I could have got it. So I think, yeah, God definitely can talk to me in indirect ways and direct ways. Whatever way that I can get it and that I can understand it. So, but yeah, I thought that was super important, like, or super cool just to know that, hey, God's talking to you, talking to all of us in so many different ways, and to recognize those ways and take heed and understand that, or be aware that God is talking to you, and you got to be listening in order to be able to do what it is that he put you here to do. So I definitely tell myself that a lot. But another thing is, and I think that someone said this on, I think it was Justin Sylvester, who I love, by the way. But he said, be so confident in God's plan that you don't even get upset when or if things go wrong. And I was like, wow, yeah. So I think that goes back to, you don't know what you don't know, you know? You don't know if it's going to turn out bad. I don't know if it's going to turn out bad. But I got to be confident in knowing that there is a plan, not my plan, but his plan. And knowing that even if something in that plan goes, now I don't want to necessarily say wrong, but goes in a different direction, that doesn't mean that also that ruins everything. That doesn't mean that it ruins it. It means that that was also probably a part of the plan, you know? So be confident in knowing that you're going where you're supposed to go. And so that's something that I definitely had to work on, probably still have to work on some, just trusting in his plan more than my own, because I don't know what I'm doing. I know that I want to do what he wants me to do. And so, but that word trust, and number one, I know that God is the person, or not the person. God is the one that I should trust before anything else. Um but trusting is hard. Trusting is hard, and it's a work in progress for sure, because it's the unknown. It's that gray area. Trusting really requires you to give way to your beliefs. And that's a tough thing to do. So, yeah. And being comfortable being uncomfortable. I think that's what trust requires. So, lastly, I've been learning that not everything still is stagnant. Just because it's not moving doesn't mean it's not working. And that's another thing that's hard to accept, because I mean, in a literal sense, okay, like if like our vacuum cleaner just broke and it literally is not moving. It was like a Roomba type of vacuum. It does not move. So that means it does not work. So that's in a literal sense. But if you as a person, if I as a person am not doing anything, it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm not working on something, or that God is not working in me for something, or if I don't see progress, immediate progress with something that I'm doing, that doesn't mean that it's not things going on in the background. So in that, with a mindset like I have, that's hard. That's tough because it's like, when is it going to start doing something, but that doesn't mean it's stagnant. That doesn't mean it's stagnant. Not always. So, and then in church, I heard the pastor say, and this goes along with that. It's so interesting. And that's how God talks to me too. He definitely talks to me like that. Because it's like a lot of the times the word is exactly what I need to hear, because it's exactly what I was thinking about that day, or exactly what I was going through recently. And it just confirms that, hey, God is talking to you in the situation. He's talking you through it. He's helping you figure it out. But the thing that the pastor said was that God is a God of and suddenly. So, and suddenly this thing happened. So even when you're being still and you think you're stagnant, and suddenly something will happen. And it's like, wow, I didn't even know this thing was brewing. You know what I mean? But God is always working. God is always working. And He is the God of and suddenly. So I think that just trusting, like I said, trusting the and suddenly, trusting that God is going to make things happen. God is going to make something shake, and you're going to be surprised by it. That's what I have to tell myself all the time, especially in situations where maybe I have some doubt. Like, I don't know, man, this is not going good. And I'm just not sure, like, what's going on. Like, God, I don't know what you're doing or what you're working on, but like, I've been in this state for some time, but I'm waiting on him. So, and I'm literally looking at this devotional book that I have, and on the cover it says, "Be still and know." And that is like, honestly, a motto of mine, something that I have to continuously tell myself. So even though I don't know what I don't know, and I don't know where the road leads necessarily, or what other like side streets I'm gonna have to take to get. What I do know is that God will work it out, and it'll all work out in His favor. So I can trust in that, and I can be still and know that's true. So yeah, that's all the topics for today. Thank you all for listening, and I'll see you next time. Bye.